The room was supposed to be about facts, about timelines, about order. But when Senator John Kennedy leaned forward with his glasses low and his pen tapping, the entire chamber felt the shift. At stake was a name already burning through headlines: Charlie Kirk. And when the FBI's lead investigator, Special Agent Patel, took his seat, Kennedy's questions cut sharper than procedure. What followed was not just inquiry, it was interrogation that froze the hearing in silence. Stay with us, and don't forget to subscribe, because this clash turned a routine briefing into a confrontation no one will forget. It began as a briefing. It became a battlefield. The Senate chamber was heavy with expectation. Marble walls stood cold and unblinking, the American flag framed behind the witness table. Reporters filled the gallery, pens poised, cameras locked on. On paper, this was another oversight hearing, routine, procedural, the kind of session where senators read prepared statements and witnesses offer carefully scripted responses. But this day was different. The name at the center of it all wasn't abstract. It was Charlie Kirk, a political figure whose shooting had sent shockwaves across the country. The public demanded answers, and the man expected to provide them was seated at the witness table. FBI Special Agent Arjun Patel, lead investigator of the probe. Patel looked composed, his suit pressed, his stack of notes aligned perfectly in front of him. His eyes flickered briefly toward the cameras, then settled on the senators. Behind him, aides whispered in low tones, their expressions taut. Everyone knew this wasn't going to be a quiet briefing. Senator John Kennedy sat at the center of the dais, glasses low on his nose, yellow legal pad perched like a weapon. He tapped his pen slowly, each strike echoing faintly against the wooden desk. The rhythm wasn't nervous. It was deliberate, like the ticking of a clock before detonation. The chairman opened with the usual formality, outlining the purpose of the hearing, reminding those present that this was about oversight, not spectacle. But the words felt hollow. Everyone in the room knew where the spotlight would fall. When Patel adjusted his microphone and began to speak, his tone was clinical, measured. The Bureau continues its investigation into the attempted assassination of Mr. Charlie Kirk. We are actively pursuing leads, conducting forensic analysis, and coordinating with local law enforcement. At this time, while details remain sensitive, I can confirm that the Bureau has ruled out certain preliminary theories and continues to narrow the scope of suspects. It was textbook testimony, careful, sanitized, almost antiseptic. But in the gallery, murmurs rose. The public wasn't asking for sanitized updates. They were asking for truth. Kennedy leaned forward, his glasses slipping lower, his pen tapping once more. His drawl cut through the air. "Well, by Mr. Patel, I appreciate your opening remarks, but I'm not here for sanitized updates. I'm here for straight answers. And so are the American people." The room shifted instantly. The gallery stilled. The reporters leaned in, pens racing. Patel adjusted in his seat, his jaw tightening slightly. The contrast was stark. Patel's measured caution against Kennedy's pointed demand. The chairman hesitated but didn't intervene. The exchange had already begun, and everyone knew Kennedy wouldn't let go until the silence in the room turned into answers. The first question cut deeper than any opening statement. Kennedy leaned closer to his mic, his drawl slow, deliberate. "Agent Patel, let's not dance. Was Charlie Kirk targeted for his politics? Yes or no?" The gallery gasped. No one expected the first question to swing that hard. Reporters scribbled furiously, underlining the phrase, "Targeted for politics?" Cameras zoomed, catching Patel's faint exhale as he adjusted his tie. Patel chose his words carefully. "Senator, the Bureau has not yet ruled conclusively on motive. While political ideology remains one possible factor, at this stage we cannot—" Kennedy interrupted sharply. "That's a lot of syllables for a simple question. Agent, the public's already made up its mind that this wasn't random. You're telling me you haven't?" The gallery stirred. Murmurs rolled through the crowd like waves hitting marble. Patel shifted in his seat, his jaw tightening. "Senator, with respect, speculation undermines the integrity of an ongoing investigation." We are following evidence, not headlines. Kennedy's glasses slid lower, his tone sharpening. Headlines, agent. The only reason there are headlines is because there was gunfire. And when there's gunfire aimed at a political figure, the American people expect clarity. Not evasions, not footnotes. Gasps punctuated his words. Reporters scribbled clarity versus evasions in bold letters. Patel straightened, his hands folded tightly together. Senator, I understand your frustration, but premature conclusions risk both the case and public safety. The Bureau is committed to accuracy, not speculation. Kennedy leaned back slightly, tapping his pen twice on the pad. His voice dropped lower. So you're admitting there's something to conclude, just not something you're ready to say out loud. The gallery buzzed louder now. Even senators shifted in their seats, sensing the balance tip. Patel's silence stretched for half a beat too long, and that pause said more than any answer. A reporter whispered to his colleague, "That's the clip right there." He didn't answer. Patel finally spoke, his tone clipped. "Senator, the Bureau is not in the business of confirming rumors. When we have facts, you'll have them." Kennedy smirked faintly, shaking his head. "Agent, when you withhold facts, you don't kill rumors. You feed them." The gallery erupted again. Murmurs, gasps, the rustle of reporters racing to underline the line. He brought the paper Patel hoped would stay sealed. Kennedy reached down to his yellow pad, then lifted a stapled packet from the desk. The camera zoomed in. The pages bore the header of an FBI field memo, partly redacted but unmistakably authentic. Kennedy held it aloft with 2 fingers, his drawl unhurried but sharp. "Agent Patel, you just told this committee you won't confirm rumors. But this here ain't rumor. This is your Bureau's own field memo from Dallas, dated 4 days after the shooting. And in black and white, it says investigators believe the subject showed intent influenced by political rhetoric." The gallery gasped. Reporters nearly leapt forward, pens scratching as the words political rhetoric echoed through the chamber. Photographers snapped furiously, trying to catch the memo's heading on Kennedy's page. Patel's jaw clenched. He sat straighter, his voice measured, but tighter now. "Senator, that document is a preliminary internal assessment. It does not represent final conclusions, nor should it be presented as—" Kennedy cut him off, voice sharper now. "Final conclusions?" "Agent, I didn't say final, I said findings so far. That's the title of this hearing, isn't it? Findings, not wish lists, not sanitized updates. Findings." The room buzzed. A ripple of murmurs spreading from gallery to dais. One senator whispered to another, "He's cornered him." Patel adjusted his tie, voice firm. "Senator, those notes were part of an early lead. Leads evolve. That's why we withhold judgment until—" Kennedy leaned forward, eyes narrowing over his glasses. "Until when? Until the news cycle dies? Until the public stops asking? Because as far as I can tell, this memo already says what you won't, that politics was in the bloodstream of this attack." The gallery roared in whispers, some gasping, some nodding, some murmuring agreement. Reporters scribbled, "Kennedy cites FBI memo, political rhetoric," in bold letters across their pads. Patel hesitated, silence stretching half a second too long. Finally, he spoke. "Senator, I cannot confirm details of an ongoing case beyond what the Bureau authorizes. That memo should not even be—" Kennedy slammed his pen down lightly against the desk, not in anger but in punctuation. His voice boomed low and steady. "Should not be seen or should not be hidden. There's a difference, agent, and the American people can tell which one this is." Gasps erupted again. One reporter whispered, "That's the headline. Should not be seen or should not be hidden." Patel's face flushed. His notes shuffled nervously. The contrast was plain. Kennedy with one packet of paper, Patel with stacks of silence. The memo wasn't the only thing exposed. The silence was too. The gallery still buzzed from Kennedy's line. Should not be seen or should not be hidden. The words echoed against marble walls, spreading faster than Patel could gather himself. Ostensibly calm, Patel shuffled the notes in front of him, but his throat tightened as he leaned toward the mic. Senator, with respect, isolated excerpts from draft documents do not represent the Bureau's position. We act on full context, not fragments. Kennedy leaned back, folding his arms slowly, letting the weight of silence linger before he answered. His voice came low, controlled. Agent, fragments are all the American people have, because that's all you're willing to give them. You think silence builds trust? No, sir. Silence builds suspicion. The chamber stirred. One senator muttered audibly, "That's true." Reporters scribbled harder, underlining, "Silence builds suspicion." The phrase landed like a hammer, reshaping the hearing's tone. Patel exhaled, trying to recover. "We cannot compromise the integrity of the investigation for the sake of headlines." Kennedy tilted his head, almost smirking. "Headlines, agent, I ain't asking you to fuel headlines. I'm asking you to answer for findings already written down by your own field office. If you won't speak to them here in front of the people's representatives, then you're asking America to trust what it cannot see." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Aides shifted nervously in their seats. Even the chairman sat back, lips pursed, as though recognizing where the momentum had gone. Patel pressed his palms flat against the table, a rare crack in his polished composure. "Senator, you are misrepresenting an evolving process," Kennedy cut in sharply. "No, agent. I'm representing the American people. They don't care about evolving processes. They care about why a political figure was nearly assassinated on American soil and why the Bureau refuses to speak the plain truth." The gallery erupted again, gasps colliding with whispers. A college student in the back row muttered, "That's it." "That's the clip." Patel's shoulders sank slightly. His earlier confidence had dimmed. He sipped water from the glass at his table, but the shake in his hand betrayed him. Kennedy, meanwhile, stayed perfectly still, glasses low, pen resting against the pad, as if every second of Patel's discomfort was part of the answer he wanted. Reporters began drafting the line in bold headlines. "Kennedy turns hearing. FBI silence questioned." The chamber had leaned. It no longer felt like Patel's testimony was guiding the day. It felt like Kennedy's cross-examination was. The gavel stayed in Washington. The clip went everywhere. It began with a shaky handheld video from the press gallery. 38 seconds. Kennedy leaning forward, memo in hand, Patel shifting uncomfortably, and then the line that detonated across the internet. "Should not be seen or should not be hidden. There's a difference, agent." The clip hit Twitter first, captioned simply, "Kennedy corners FBI on Kirk probe." In 15 minutes, it cleared 1 million views. By the hour's end, hashtags trended globally. Hashtag Kennedy vs FBI, hashtag Charlie Kirk probe, hashtag should not be hidden. TikTok stitched the moment in endless variations. Some slowed the frame where Patel's jaw tightened, freezing on Kennedy's stare. Others layered dramatic strings, bold text flashing over the screen. "Silence builds suspicion." Memes exploded. Patel with stacks of paper labeled classified. Kennedy with one yellow pad labeled truth. Instagram reels spread a side-by-side. On the left, Kennedy, calm, glasses low. On the right, Patel hesitating, water glass shaking. Captions told the story, confidence versus silence. Another reel split Kennedy's words into beats. Should not be seen, slash or should not be hidden. Each line punctuated by a pause in the footage. Cable news lit up. Fox ran the chyron. Kennedy grills FBI over Kirk case. CNN tried FBI faces tough questions in Senate. MSNBC's lower third read, hearing erupts over Kirk assassination probe. But regardless of spin, every outlet replayed the same clip. Kennedy's stare, Patel's pause. Podcasts rushed emergency drops. Titles appeared like breaking news. Kennedy versus Patel. The silence heard. Round the Hill talk radio lines buzzed. Callers argued whether Kennedy had overstepped, but all agreed Patel looked shaken. One host said flatly, "You can't drink water that nervous and claim control." In law schools, professors uploaded the clip for their students. One paused it mid-frame, Patel's lips pressed, Kennedy's finger tapping the memo. "Class," he said, "this is cross-examination outside the courtroom. Watch the timing. Watch the silence." The lecture itself went viral. Even late-night comedy took a swing. One host quipped, "The FBI agent said nothing for 5 seconds," which, to be fair, is the most honest thing we've heard from them all week. The crowd roared, but when the raw clip played, laughter gave way to silence. Back inside the Capitol, aides whispered to each other in the hallway. "That's the only moment that'll matter." Another replied grimly, and Patel gave it to him. By nightfall, the narrative had hardened. Patel's official testimony was pages long. Kennedy's words were just a sentence, but the sentence was everywhere. The memo faded into silence. The silence became the story. When the committee reconvened after the short recess, the mood in the chamber had shifted. It wasn't just another session anymore. It was aftermath. Every senator had checked their phones, seen the clip replayed across feeds. Every reporter had filed drafts that already framed the exchange. And every aide knew the viral verdict. Patel looked rattled. Kennedy looked calm. The gallery was quieter now, not out of respect, but out of anticipation. All eyes lingered on Patel, waiting to see if he'd recover. His hands tightened around his stack of notes, knuckles pale under the lights. The water glass beside him was half drained, the condensation smudged from nervous fingers. Kennedy, by contrast, sat still. His yellow pad lay untouched, his pen resting flat. Glasses low, eyes steady, he didn't need to say a word. His silence filled the chamber in a way Patel's answers could not. The chairman gave Patel the floor to continue. Patel cleared his throat, voice slightly strained. "As I was saying, the Bureau remains committed to impartiality and accuracy. We do not allow politics to influence our investigative process." But the words rang hollow. Senators shifted uncomfortably. One Democrat rubbed his forehead, avoiding eye contact. A Republican leaned back with a faint smirk, arms crossed. Even neutral members of the panel betrayed subtle tells. The sighs, the glances toward Kennedy, the pen scratching less furiously than before. The gallery picked up on it instantly. A law student whispered to his professor, "He's speaking, but nobody's listening." The professor nodded, because Kennedy already framed the moment. Everything after is filler. Patel pressed on, flipping through his notes, but his rhythm faltered. He stumbled once, corrected himself, then looked up nervously as cameras caught the hesitation. Kennedy finally leaned in, not to ask another question, but simply to adjust his glasses. The motion alone drew the room's focus back to him. Patel swallowed hard, his composure cracking under the weight of eyes that no longer trusted him. One reporter jotted a headline in his notebook. "FBI agent speaks, Kennedy owns the silence." Another muttered to her colleague, "He doesn't have to talk anymore." The room already decided. And in that silence, the defeat was clear. Not because Patel lacked words, but because Kennedy didn't need any. The last question wasn't long. It was lethal. The chairman gave Kennedy the floor for closing. Kennedy leaned forward, sliding his glasses lower, pen resting lightly between his fingers. The gallery hushed, sensing the moment. Patel shifted in his seat, straightening his tie, bracing for another barrage. Kennedy's voice came low, steady, each word spaced like a hammer strike. "Agent Patel, if this committee hadn't seen that memo, would the American people have ever known politics was even mentioned in your investigation?" The chamber froze. Patel's lips parted, but no words came. His eyes flickered down to his notes, then back to Kennedy, then to the chairman. Silence stretched, heavy, unbearable. The camera zoomed, catching every twitch of his jaw, every drop of sweat. Kennedy didn't press. He didn't need to. He leaned back in his chair, folding his arms, his expression calm, but unrelenting. The silence itself was his answer. Reporters scribbled furiously, some circling the same phrase. Would the people ever have known? Photographers captured Patel's frozen stare, Kennedy's steady calm. Aides in the back exchanged glances. They didn't need to speak. The verdict was clear. Finally, Patel exhaled, voice faint. "I cannot answer that." The gallery gasped. The sentence was short, but it was the end. Kennedy nodded once, almost imperceptibly, then looked toward the chairman. Mr. Chairman, I have no further questions. The gavel struck. This hearing is adjourned. But the sound was redundant. The real conclusion had already landed, written in silence, sealed by one question. Was Kennedy right to expose the FBI's hesitation? Or did he go too far by forcing Patel into silence? Tell me in the comments below. And if you missed our last clash, Joel Osteen told security to remove John Kennedy. Then he did this. Go watch it now. Don't forget to hit subscribe because the next confrontation will be even bigger.